I can't believe this is actually gonna happen. NBC, you've did it. Hello, this is J.E. Realize, and it's time I do a bit of an update regarding the American Song Contest, because that is long overdue. In fact, this video was originally supposed to be posted, I don't know, last month. I thought about putting a new video between the original video I made and the premiere of the show. That didn't happen because the NBC decided to delay the premiere from February 21st to March 21st. They said it was to promote America's Got Talent Extreme, because of course, and COVID, because of course. Instead of 6 shows, we would get 8 shows, and the final show would be on May the 9th, exactly 1 day before the start of the Eurovision semifinals. If you're like me, who lives in the Pacific time zone, and you watch the American Song Contest final on local time, and then you watch the Eurovision Song Contest on its time, which here it would be noon Pacific Daylight Time, that's what? 14 hours from the end of the final show of the American Song Contest to the beginning of Eurovision? You better get yourself some sleep. And then there was the bombshell that told you straight up that NBC was serious, because they paid money for a Super Bowl ad. You can't back out of paying hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to run a Super Bowl ad. Oh, and let me tell you, Snoop Dogg and Kelly Clarkson, the hosts of American Song Contest, which is fair. You got Snoop Dogg, famous rapper, formerly known as Snoop Lion from California, and you got Kelly Clarkson from Texas, the first ever winner of American Idol. Also at the beginning of March, we found out who precisely is participating in American Song Contest, and there are quite a few entries. Well, there are 56 acts, what did you expect? You got, of course, some established artists in there, thrown for flavor. I mean, you got Crystal Method, Michael Bolton, Macy Gray, Cisco, Jewel. These are the entries they like to bring up often to say, oh, this is big deal material. But there have also been other acts that have captured the imagination of some people who are actually just aware of the American Song Contest's existence. You know, like Ada Leanne, Brooke Alex, Alexa, King Coyote, Yamhouse, Brett Seper, Kelsey Lamb. I mean, none of you have heard of these names. Heck, I barely know who these people are. And I'm the one who's going through and finding out, oh, Alan Stone is going to send in a song called Little Bit of Both. And this act from South Dakota is going to send in a song called Bad Girl, or that sort of stuff. And it's only fair that we don't know anything, because from what I gather, we're not going to know what the songs are going to be in their full length until the day of the event, like the midnight before the show. I don't know what time that midnight is. Presumably you could find the songs on NBC when they show up, listen to them beforehand, and then when it's time for the show you vote, that sort of stuff. Considering that some of the guys who did Melodifestivalen in Sweden, the Swedish national selection, are working on this show, I mean, that makes sense. Also, it kind of makes sense that they're doing an 8-show system, because the way I see it, based on information I've gleaned, you're going to have 5 first rounds, with 4 or 5 acts from each show selected and advanced to the semifinals, of which there are 2. And then the top 5 of each semifinal advancing to the final, which, it makes sense. Also, the show's expected to be 2 hours long per episode, meaning you can't do a Eurovision and like have 18 songs per show. I, with my Eurovision brain mindset, would have accepted 3 semifinals and 1 final, but that would have been overwhelming, even with NBC. From what I've heard, this has yet to be confirmed, we would have 4 acts from each first round advance to the semifinals, with the results of the previous show announced in the next show. And the semifinals would also bring in 2 special acts that were left behind in the first round that just had a buzz of media attention. So they would be wild cards. And then, as I said, the top 5 of each semifinal go to the final. They said the voting would be Eurovision style. I hope it is. I kind of find it weird with 10 songs in the final, because if you're not allowed to vote for your own state, then are we just going to have each person who is in the final and is voting just receive 1 point by default? If it works top 10, everyone's guaranteed points. But it could also be a top 5 voting, or top 3, I don't know. But let's get into something else, because as much as I could speculate, I need to talk about why I haven't talked about all these big deal events. And it's simply because I kind of want to reserve myself. I already did reserve myself by waiting until 9 days before the contest to record this, and 7 days before the contest to show it on YouTube. And I could totally be wrong, and that is acceptable. But now I feel like if I want to do an episode 0A before the contest to get some thoughts out of the way before we see what we are truly dealing with, might as well strike now. And by now I mean the week before. Oh, and also I'm pretty sure there will be some people who found me because I'm talking about the American Song Contest. Which, by the way, hello, this is J.E. Realize, if you haven't known that already. Feel free to stick around until the end of the video so I can tell you a little bit more about myself. But let's discuss a bit about why we're starting the event on March 21st and ending it on May the 9th. Well, first off, this means that the US isn't going to compete in Eurovision. No, sirree, Bob. That's out of the question. I mean, March 21st is like the deadline, isn't it? Isn't it like you're supposed to have all your songs selected for Eurovision by then? Mind you, I've stayed away from Eurovision news because I kinda want to reserve myself and don't want myself to get spoiled. Don't want to spoil my appetite. ASC is my appetite. I can't believe I'm saying that. I kinda gleaned that what's going on, Ukraine's not going to be in Eurovision and Russia's probably going to be kicked out. I mean, it would make sense. But this would also mean that the contest attendance would be under 40. Oh well, what are you going to do? But of course, as I stated before, this is the EBU's latest attempt to expand the Eurovision brand, and they haven't really been doing that successful a job with expanding the Eurovision brand. I mean, they got Junior Eurovision, but that's about it. Eurovision Choir is dead. They tried Eurovision Asia. That didn't work well. I've heard Hispanavision, or Hispavision, I don't know what it's called, is coming back. Although, with the expectation of it coming back in 2023, that's a year too late, because this year is the 50th anniversary of the first OTI festival. Now, I know these events take years to plan, but seriously, how haven't you thought of that? As for the American Song Contest, I can see it lasting for a few years, at least. The problem is, it needs to appeal to a lot of people. Now, I've heard expectations of ASC viewing numbers around the 10 to 15 million range, which, okay, I guess it's fine for a prime time over-the-air broadcast slot, I guess, but I kind of expect more. It's cool that the show's being sold overseas to countries in Europe, and of course Canada, which might as well be closer to Europe than we did. Celine Dion! I can't... No. Can I say Rika? Can I change my answer to Rika? 15 million? Okay, it'll be fine. But unless you keep advertising and keep people invested in the contest, this attention won't last. Now, naturally, the talent and the songs should be enough to keep attention. but you still need to attract an audience. And that's going to be tricky because, there's a lot of cogs in it. You need the word of mouth. You need to keep putting money into advertising and all that sort of stuff. And I know what you're thinking. How is this guy with no broadcast experience telling NBC how to do their job? I'm like, I know very well that lack of advertising kills shows. I mean, there used to be a spin-off of Doctor Who called Class, yet it didn't go past 6 episodes because it wasn't really advertised. Heck, I hadn't heard of it, and I was well into Doctor Who back then. I said rel instead of well. That's a Doctor Who reference, by the way. Rels? That's a measurement of time? What am I doing? But yeah, NBC has a lot of work to do. They're going to have to keep this train pristine from start to finish. They're going to have to deliver quality product. They have the budget to do that. They have people with experience. They just need to have the initiative. And I really hope that NBC and EBU as well, because they're complicit in this, are willing to push through this to the bitter end. Because I should have mentioned at the very beginning, corporations aren't your friends. They're going to do what they can to make the most money. Even virtue signaling. Especially virtue signaling. So if they see that there's another show that's getting more attention, like Fox apparently is releasing this show called 911 to compete with American Song Contest. I think that's silly. But if it ends up getting more numbers than American Song Contest, then NBC is going to have a sour taste in their mouth. And they're going to see whether or not it's worth keeping the American Song Contest brand. Which is a shame. Now, part of the onus is indeed on us. The people who are passionate about the American Song Contest, who want it to do well. If you want the American Song Contest to do well, if you are a fan of the American Song Contest or want to see it do well, you need to show your support. Like, you need to tell people, you need to get them interested in this sort of thing. You need to vote when possible. And honestly, you need to watch the show. Watch the show live, because it doesn't really matter if you tape record it and watch it the next day, because, well, I'll give you exceptions if you're busy, but they aren't going to count in the Nielsen ratings. And I know, Eric Bischoff showed us that Nielsen ratings are not everything. But keep in mind, this is entirely contained within the realm of television. Whether Eurovision shouts out the American Song Contest in the final on May 14th depends on whether or not the ASC is successful. And as for the Eurovision fans, I don't know what to tell you. I would encourage you, though, to watch ASC, because this perception that Eurovision is a bunch of camp, non-serious, trivial pop entries, and how that just leeches as poison into the perception of the American Song Contest, that is a harmful outlook to have, because if the ASC isn't successful, then first off, maybe take a look at ESC in recent history, because if you were dissuaded back in the late 2000s by Eurovision having these camp entries, you've missed out on some stuff that maybe you would have enjoyed. The top 3 are entries that are not in English, for instance. You got some rather imaginative, out-of-the-box thinking. You got some unique messages in there. And it's bound to be the same with the ASC. The ASC has a bit of a disadvantage compared to the ESC, though, and that is that it's all run by basically one company. Eurovision is a collaboration of different broadcasters, and I did say in the previous video that having one broadcaster running everything isn't necessarily bad, but also runs the risk of having an entire panel selecting all the songs. All the songs in one show selected by one panel. Now, the EBU technically does that, screens all the entries before submitting them in, but other broadcasters with their own heft have selected those entries and sent them over. We'll just have to see how well NBC does on its own, because it's really a bit of a toss-up. There are advantages and disadvantages to each, and I gotta mention, that whole strategy of NBC selecting artists that have a deep connection to the states or territories they're participating in is not the worst idea, because you need to fill in all the spots, and having territories with 50,000 people in the United States, it's a bit of a challenge. But they made it work. Only 6 or 7 acts are kind of from outside of the area they're participating in. But hey, I'll allow it. If you grew up in the place you're representing, if you have relatives there, it's fine, I guess. I'll allow it. But since I'm a Californian, that means I not only have Sweet Taboo representing California, but I also have the artist representing American Samoa, also from California. That is just so funny. Okay, I think I know what California's going to give its 12 points to. It's all a game of nepotism. We have yet to know what this contest is about, but now we have a closer idea. You can track these artists down. You can go through newsletters, you can go through their Twitters, their YouTubes, their Instagram. I especially downloaded TikTok to see what these people had to say. Yeah, I know, that's kind of taboo, because TikTok is owned by a Chinese company or something like that. I don't know how the meme goes. But yeah, I went hard into TikTok just to see another member of Yam House talk about his band. Yeah, you'd be surprised how much Yam House you can get in there. You can find out the style of the songs they perform. We have a K-pop artist in the contest, for goodness sake. We got, you know, your ballads, your countries, R&B probably in there, your bands. You got your dance numbers, all sorts of crazy stuff. I told you we would have this selection of music diversity. I told you. Okay, that's a little bit harsh. With that said, the idea going forward for videos regarding the American Song Contest is I'm going to post a video with my thoughts of the previous American Song Contest episode. Yes, I said previous because I'm aiming for a Tuesday after release. Like, you would have the episode on a Monday, and then the next day I would get to work creating a short snippet of my thoughts on the previous episode. You know, talk a little bit about what I saw and how I feel this pertains to the destiny of the American Song Contest, and just keep doing that. Episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and once we get to episode 8, I'll be talking about Eurovision. And I have rather strange ways of dealing with Eurovision. In 2016, 2017, 2018, I was obsessed with the national finals, especially 2018. That was the worst offender. I had Duna on one screen and I had Vidbeer on the other one, and I was like, who's gonna select theirs first? Is it gonna be Melovan or is it gonna be Oz? But now I'm experimenting with the opposite thought, staying away from the entries for a little bit until we're assured of who's going to enter. 2019, I didn't know any of the songs until we got into the contest proper. 2020, I stayed away from all the songs, and that turned out to be a good move. 2021, I stayed away from the songs until late April and shared them with my sister to amp ourselves up. 2022, I'm going to stay away from Eurovision because I want to focus exclusively on the ASC, because that's another thing. People who are interested in Eurovision, people who are big Eurovision stans, if you want to keep yourself occupied from the time of the last song being selected for Eurovision up until the contest proper, well, here's your option. And some European countries are taking it. Now, of course, you might renege on this, but I'm suggesting try it out. If you are willing to stomach going through over 100 songs worth of Belarusian national final a year, you could do much worse than the ASC. And Belarus isn't even in the contest anymore. Okay, maybe that's not a nice thing to say. But, yeah, the Belarusian national broadcaster. They robbed Napoli. They always rob Napoli. It's like 90% of the votes go to not Napoli. Anyway, do the feedback thing. This is a thing I like to say to viewers of my channel. If you're new, I like to extend the call as saying you can like the video or dislike the video, comment to give yourself feedback so you can boost the algorithm. It's like, I shouldn't be ashamed at all. I mean, I have autism. I have no reason to be ashamed. You can also subscribe to my channel and click the notification icon if you want to see me continue talking about the ASC or Eurovision. I also sometimes do Minecraft Let's Plays, talk about 10 shows I have yet to watch. Sometimes I'll ramble on about Steven Universe. That's a topic for another time. I really need to get on that. There's also my Twitter, @JERealized. I don't know why people don't go to my Twitter. It's more of an off-the-cuff view of me. It's more me saying what I can't reasonably fit in a video because there's not enough content. Like, this is an exception. I have lots to say about the American Song Contest. And you might learn something, even if it's that the OTI festival started 50 years ago. By the way, Brazil won the first edition. And Mexico didn't compete until the next year because they were going to send in the song that Spain, the host nation, considered political. It's literally called I'm Not Going to the War. And don't feel shy about sharing the ASC or the ESC with friends. We need as many eyes as we can. And honestly, they may not know what they're missing out on. And they may like it. Especially if Twitter tracks the American Song Contest. They can say, yes, I was on that when it aired, and I loved it. You should join me for the ride. They get to feel like trendsetters. I know that's selfish, but think about that. This has been JERealized. I'll see you next time, and there will be a next time. Wait, I didn't get to talk about Adele yet. What are you doing to me?